Welcome to Deprogram, brought to you by Firefox, which will apparently allow me to use the correct microphone, unlike yesterday. I'm Michelle Witte. I'm here with John Kiriakou and Ted Rall. Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome
Great
back.
to hear you clearly. Thanks.
And you sound great.
Thank you. You know, people always say that.
If this podcasting thing doesn't work out, you can always go take on Taylor Swift.
I would love to do voice acting. You know, I think that'd be so fun. Yeah, I'm such a bad singer. We have a lot to talk about today. I want to talk a little bit more about the perversion of justice that we're watching in our country, right? Where the FBI is now apparently just doing corporate security guarding for Tesla specifically. And we have plainclothes agents rounding up residents for the crimes of writing op-eds that this administration disagrees with. It's truly frightening. I've got a fun Boeing update, a sort of not a shot chaser, a one hand and then the other hand update from Boeing that I think is pretty fun. We have a disgusting display by and for Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem down in El Salvador. And then maybe if we got time, we've got a little bit more evidence for the Mike Walls is a lying liar column when he says that he has no idea how Jeffrey Goldberg's information or contact information got sucked into his phone. So I don't know where you guys want to start.
Donald Trump actually said that he believes it was a glitch in the app, that it was the app that generated this whole conversation about targeting the Houthis and adding a reporter to the mix.
I thought Trump was supposed to be clean and sober.
Right.
Yeah.
Also,
happened to
the
me.
press secretary yesterday again repeated this story about the phone number being added. In Signal, you don't add a phone number; you add a name.
A name.
I use Signal every single day. Used it for years.
And it has the person has to already be in your contacts for you.
And they have to be a member of Signal.
And they have to be a member of Signal.
Yep. Yep. It's a pain.
And I want to add something too that I think I mentioned yesterday, but it bears repeating. Tom Drake, the NSA whistleblower, who is one of the country's leading experts on these technological issues, said that just because Signal or any other encrypted app is encrypted doesn't mean that it can't be intercepted, because it can be intercepted as you are typing it. It only becomes encrypted once you hit the send button. And the technology is such, the technology that governments have is such that they just get it as you're typing it and it plays out on their screen so they can read it.
Yeah.
So I would venture to say the Russians saw this, the Chinese saw it, the Israelis saw it, and any host of other countries, North Korea. Yeah.
The app does not defend your phone.
No.
You know, the app is not a line of defense against your phone being penetrated. Yeah. There's been some funny reporting about just what information is out there about our elected officials. I forget where the source was, but it was probably Wired or somewhere, reporting that Tulsi Gabbard, among others, her phone number, in some instances, passwords are publicly available, which, you know, okay, this is too much to hope for. But if we wanted to look on the bright side, we've been having conversations for years about how we need to maybe change our definition of, change our understanding of privacy when it comes to, quote, publicly available information, because of, you know, software, including AI, that is able to sort of scour the internet and pull together bits of information that can create actually a very complete picture of someone that you couldn't do manually, right? It would take so much effort. And that we need to sort of update privacy laws to reflect this. Maybe the fact that, you know, this can be done for people in positions of significant power now, and is being done because we do have a bunch of people in significant positions of power who haven't bothered to do the sort of like information hygiene or whatever you want to call it, that they probably should have, that we can get some kind of privacy update along the lines of what the European Union has done. But I see Ted shaking his head there because
Michelle,
no, of course not. Why should that happen for just regular people?
Sober.
I know. And along those lines, we also had, I think it was Wired and the American Prospect got a hold of Mike Walls, National Security Director Mike Walls, his or security advisor, his previously public list of Venmo contacts, which include, you'll be shocked because I guess he doesn't talk to reporters, but it included the contact information of several reporters, and not just conservative ones, but people at CNN, people at MSNBC, and then of course some people at Fox. So I don't know how that data got sucked into his phone. But he should maybe take it to the Geek Squad or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least he's not blaming the app, which is what Trump did this morning.
Yeah.
Which Trump doesn't use, right? I think the only tech he's got facility with is either X or Truth Social, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's all computer. It's all computer to him.
Just as an aside, and I apologize for jumping off topic, and we could jump right back on, but did you happen to see the email this morning from Caleb Maupin that he has been permanently banned from Blue Sky?
No.
Oh, I didn't realize it was permanent.
Well, what? For what?
I think just for being Caleb Maupin. He's a well-known communist. He's a supporter of Russia and the Ukraine conflict. He's just reporting the same stuff that he's always reported. And he's shocked, I tell you, that he's been suspended by Blue Sky.
I believe also we should probably put communist in air quotes. I think he's got an idiosyncratic definition there of communism.
I think that's an important point. Yeah.
Yes. Did you guys see the report from yesterday that the FBI is creating a brand new task force to deal with vandalism of Teslas?
Yeah. Yeah. What kills me, though, is how, if you key a car, then you pay a $50 fine and maybe some restitution. If you key a Tesla, it's a hate crime and you can go to prison for 20 years.
I think I have just pulled this up. There's a guy whose Tesla was keyed at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. He's filed $1 million lawsuit. He's suing him for $1 million. Saying that the keying of his car caused him emotional distress and anguish.
Well, now, in fairness to this guy, I don't know if Texas is one of those states, but New York is. When you file suit, you have to specify an amount that you sue for. And you always want to go big because you don't want to say, hey, you know what I mean? So people then say, well, you sued for $1 million. But I like it better in states like California, where if you sue, it's up to the jury to decide what damages, if any, you're entitled to.
Yeah.
That's how it should be.
That's how it should be. That's right.
It's just, it is, I guess, again, we have the Trump administration. They make overt and extreme what was previously the case, but to a somewhat lesser degree. And in this case, we're talking about the use of, state and federal police to do almost nothing but protect private property, and in particular, some people's private property and not others. You know what I mean? Your bike gets stolen, your car gets stolen, whatever, your packages get stolen. Good luck, right? But God forbid people be able to organize protests in front of Teslas without ending up on some kind of FBI watch list. So we don't know how big this task force that is being put together is going to be, but it's just, okay, I guess the FBI exists specifically to try to salvage Elon Musk's business ventures and punish anyone who would dare to, because I don't know as I understand it, there have been a couple of instances of arson, right? Yeah. So, okay, a thing getting caught on fire is a little bit scary, right? But
it's also an environmental problem. Burning cars that generates a lot of very bad stuff into the atmosphere.
Yeah, maybe someone should go after Tesla for making all these cars that catch on fire so easily and burn so hotly, right? Burn so intensely. There is a CNN story that's sort of going into the different things that have happened at Tesla dealerships, and one is where an employee saw something suspicious. You see an employee like saw something suspicious at a dealership, called it in. The police came. They were warned about like potential hazardous materials. And the police came and they determined that these devices were incendiary and took them away. And my joke is going to be like, oh, well, what cars are they going to sell now that they've taken away all the incendiary devices? Because, there are people who are still trying to get some money out of Tesla by claiming that their cars are unsafe. But the placement of the batteries, the nature of the fires that they generate make them a hazard, and that their loved ones would have survived a crash in another car. I mean, there was a woman whose husband was trapped in a burning Tesla.
Yeah, and the door handles don't open. So if your car catches fire and a first responder happens upon it quickly, they have to break the windows to get to you.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I can't believe this was ever approved by federal regulators.
Well, that's how Mitch McConnell's sister-in-law died, isn't it? She went into a pond. And
she didn't catch fire. She just backed into a pond and slowly sank.
And couldn't get out. Couldn't kick the window out.
It's insane.
Yeah. But what does the FBI have to do these days? I guess, but keep an eye on people who are organizing these Tesla takeover protests, which are not necessarily the same as anybody randomly throwing Molotov cocktail at a Tesla, but protests organized to. Show up in front of Tesla dealerships and protest Elon Musk and hold picket, signs and whatever, and protest this, billionaires running roughshod over the processes of American government. And now, let's like snoop into all of their social media history, right? Because there's nothing else going on in this country.
Well, I do want to, there's so much to unpack here. First of all, there's the irony aspect, right? Which was that until a year and a half ago, owning a Tesla was a liberal side.
Totally.
It was like an NPR tote bag, right? It's like
that's right.
And now suddenly everything's flipped. So if you bought your car a couple of years ago, like my ex-wife, what did you do? You didn't. Suddenly your political sign is off. And then there's also the fact that what about the Streisand effect? I mean, it seems to me like Musk and the federal government are programming. Are basically, spreading the word that it's open season on Teslas. It's like they're giving ideas to people who might not normally get them.
Yes, and the media is partly to blame for this too. I'm on the email list of a hyper local news thing called ArlingtonNow.com. So it's just news from Arlington, Virginia. And they sent me this hair on fire breaking news, and it has like 2 police sirens on the side of it as a GIF. Breaking news. Someone painted a swastika onto a Tesla in the courthouse neighborhood. Detectives are on the case. It's like, seriously? This is breaking news with the 2 sirens going like this. Yeah, this is where we are today.
Here's the thing, right? You have, again, it's FBI task force. You have Pam Bondi, the attorney general, calling attacks on Tesla domestic terrorism. You have Kash Patel, the FBI director, saying the same thing. You have the president joking grotesquely about the prison conditions in El Salvador where any of these domestic terrorists might be sent. Right. And again, this is over mostly. If you burn up somebody's Tesla, you should get charged with vandalism and property damage. Right. Like, sure. If you damage a dealership, there are already crimes on the books for the things that might occur during a protest. But I seem to recall conservatives for the last 4 years, howling that their free speech rights were being violated, applauding the new regime where people were going to be allowed to speak their minds and protest what they want, whether it be wearing masks or not reelecting Donald Trump. And now I guess it turns out the only things that you could safely protest are not wearing masks and not reelecting Donald Trump, because anything else is going to get you threatened with terrorism charges and explicitly threatened with being renditioned to another country, while the president laughs about how you're going to maybe starve to death and get beat up.
Yep.
And then we have...
Well, everything's terrorism now, right? If you protest, if you write an op-ed about Gaza, you're hurting the foreign policy of the United States, and you're supporting Hamas, a State Department designated terrorist organization. If you vandalize a Tesla, you're a terrorist. I mean, everything's terrorism now.
We should mention, because I don't think we said on the air, but what happened to that Turkish student who wrote an op-ed supporting the Palestinian resistance?
Yes. Yeah, this was at Tufts University, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tufts University. She's a Turkish PhD student. Mm-hmm. She wrote an op-ed, and there is security camera footage of her just walking down the street, minding her own business, and 3 plainclothes, undercover Department of Homeland Security agents who are milling around their unmarked SUV walk up to her, confront her, and in less than 30 seconds, she's in cuffs.
They take her phone out of her hands.
Yeah,
like they take her phone out of her hands. They grab her hands. Like,
yep.
This is a dangerous person. This woman walking down the street with a purse and a phone and nothing else. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's sick. But this is the thing. The courts are only ruling on individual cases. Like Mahmoud, what was his name at Columbia?
Khalil.
Khalil, thank you. So in the Mahmoud Khalil case, they've only come back with a temporary decision on that one case. There's no blanket federal court decision saying you can't be expelled for thoughts that don't align with the government policy. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going to have to sue individually, and by then, you could just as well be deported already.
Yeah. I was just looking for, I mean, the thing is, this is not novel, right? This attempt to charge protesters with terrorism is not novel. No. This was being allowed to go ahead under the previous administration, the Biden administration. When it comes to the Cop City protesters in Atlanta, they're just the handiest example to grab, right? Yes. Where they were being charged with racketeering, right, and stuff for donating to a protest food kitchen or whatever, right? Yes. This is an expansion of the use of these kinds of charges, and basically bowing to the will of the variety of corporate entities who have faced mass protest over the years and don't like it, right? With the Dakota Access Pipeline kind of being a big, I don't know if you can call it the starting point, but like the Standing Rock protests there against the Dakota Access Pipeline were
we should mention in context here that Greenpeace just got slammed with over $500 million verdict for their role in the Standing Rock protest, and they're worried that they may have to close up shop.
Oh yes,
you had factory farms wanting to charge trespassers on their farms who want to film conditions or whatever with terrorism, and there hasn't been a principled defense of this from either party. I mean, of course, you have the case of Luigi Mangione, of course, who shot one person and is being charged with terrorism. And so, again, I think that it's incorrect to say that both parties are exactly the same. I think that this administration and the Republicans are taking it a little bit further. But there was an opportunity to draw a line in the sand here, right? And neither party has taken it. And so now, again, we are seeing like the door was left open, right, by Democrats who were like, sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not okay. We're going to sort of leave it halfway open and just sort of stand here leaning against it. And what has happened, the Trump administration has come through, kicked it in, and said any kind of protest, any kind of speech that we don't like is, a jailable offense.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And we still don't have any principled opposition to this. And you know what I was just wondering? Where's old Thomas Massie?
Yeah.
Where's our boy Thomas Massie, who, again, not the worst congressman, simply because he has appeared to have some principles in the past. He's done things like vote against this incredibly expansive and dangerous definition of anti-Semitism, and he's sort of, I think he's against violations of privacy, right? That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where I don't see anything about Thomas Massie coming out and talking about how people should have the right to. It only occurred to me this morning to look, so forgive me if I've missed it, but I don't see headlines about Massie breaking ranks. You know,
he's not, but I think I can tell you why. It's because he voted for himself for Speaker of the House. The president was furious because Trump had called Massie personally that morning and told him to vote for Mike Johnson. He didn't. And so Trump announced that he was going to support a primary challenge. And I think Massie has concluded that he's in enough trouble right now as it is with Trump that he just can't take on anymore right now.
Man.
It's ugly.
Yeah, it is. It is. And again, you know, dumping money, private entities dumping money into primary challenges is something that was tolerated when it was AIPAC for years and years and years. And now that it's also, you know, Elon Musk in particular, well, oh boy, that's a real issue now, isn't it? And it's like, you can't defend against this when you're doing it piecemeal. You have to defend a principle. You can't just say AIPAC's good for some reason and Musk is bad for other reasons.
Yeah, that's right.
There's no consistency. I mean, never has there been we're in such a stark period of free speech for me, but not for thee.
Yeah,
law for thee, not for me. I mean, I don't see it getting better. I mean, really, nobody cares. I mean, it's like when you really tell us when you read the comment sections to controversial stories like the Gaza protests, like the Mahmoud Khalil story in, say, the New York Times and the Washington Post, and I look at those because these are some of the most educated American journalism consumers are subscribers to these two publications. And, like if you're, for example, you support Israel, you really don't care about Mahmoud Khalil. And you don't even see from a selfish standpoint how these kind of tactics could be turned against you and your supporters in the future. It's just like, he deserves it. Fuck him. Send them away. Yeah. And I mean, and it's just like, and it flips around, whenever it's, people who are Democrats, they have the same kind of thing. Like when lawfare was being, deployed against Trump unfairly, they were like, fuck him. We don't care. I mean, civil society is breaking down.
The other thing is, and I think this goes to your point, Ted, I think if you asked most Americans what is unique about our country, what makes our country different from the rest of the world, they would give you some variation on our freedoms, right? Yes. And I don't know if you pressed a lot of people if they could really define what freedoms exactly those were that we have that other countries don't have. But I bet speech would be up there. Oh, you can do what you want. You can say what you want. You don't, you're not tyrannized by your government, etc. Well, now what? Yeah, that's not true. So what are we as a country now? And that goes to society breaking down. Like, what is the idea of the United States except a place where you will probably go bankrupt if you get cancer? Unless, I'm exaggerating mildly, but it's less of an exaggeration every year, like truly. And so, now I guess there is going to be at least if there's an explicit fight for what is the definition of this country, it's people will realize that there is a possibility of creating and defining it. And in my opinion, that would be good rather than just sort of like entertaining ourselves in the ruins of empire forever until we expire. Because that's what we had been doing until things got really uncomfortable, right? We're all just sort of like jerking off inside this giant blood-soaked edifice that we don't really understand the function of or the consequences of. So great. But we have to contend now with, I guess, a group of people whose idea of the United States is I don't know, should be whiter or something. I don't know really what the conservative vision is except orderliness. But yeah, I mean, because if at some point people, I would think at some point people are going to pay attention when like this whole foundational understanding of what this country is picked apart.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we never really understood.
No. I mean, there's been an erosion for a long time, but it's speeding up now, right?
And there's just no sense. I mean, nobody's taught at all. You have to defend the free speech rights of the people with whom you disagree vehemently.
Absolutely.
But there was The People versus Larry Flint. When did that movie come out? 25 years ago or something? Like there was a time when that was sort of recognized and celebrated, and the ACLU was sort of recognized, and people get mad, but like it was at least it was like a conversation. I don't think they were being called traitors or whatever. They would take on unpopular cases like.
Oh, they were. Oh, they were. Like they were accused of being anti-Semitic when they sided with the Nazi marchers in Skokie, Illinois, and so on.
But it was at least a debate. It feels like now. I mean, the ACLU is still sort of kicking, but every we've had what we haven't talked about very much on this show, sort of Trump's attacks on big law, who are just lying down one by one, donating pro bono work for him so that he won't bar their lawyers from entering federal buildings and strip their clearances and whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I think I guess the good news is, right, like the sort of role, the corporate role in our current state is exposed as I feel like it never has been before. And to the extent that the entities that are supposed to share this with the population are doing it, that has the potential to do some good. People to see their country as it really is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think everybody's got their heads so far up their asses.
I said that earlier this morning on another podcast.
Or to be charitable people. People are out busting their asses just trying to stay on top of the rent, It's like either head up their ass disease or, I'm trying to get someone to watch my kids while I finish my shift and come home and just have a couple beers and go to sleep.
Did you happen to see in the Journal today that this year, for the first time, the average Wall Street bonus is equal to 4 times the average U.S. salary?
Jesus, that's disgusting. Well, one of the stories that we didn't get to talk about over the last couple of weeks is another Wall Street Journal story that discusses the extent to which, remember during the pandemic and after, over and over, the power of the U.S. consumer was extolled, right? The indomitable U.S. consumer that we're always going to spend, and that's what's going to keep the economy rolling over. And it just turns out that actually it is really a tiny fraction of people who have a lot of money who are actually making the expenditures. I had actual notes about this somewhere, but I mean, we don't need to get into the details necessarily to understand why this matters. Like let's see. Oh, well, I can't find it right now. But like this US consumer, indomitable US consumer, that is actually a myth, right? It is the top 10% of earners account now for almost 50% of all spending. So households making $250,000 a year or more account for 50% of all spending, a record in data that goes back to 1989, about 2/3 as much as what it was 30 years ago. And so those are the people who are keeping this economic project afloat. It's not the rest of us, right? So it's that's the head up their ass crew. And then the rest of us are just trying to get by. And I understand why you might not have time to wrestle with the total demise of your society if you're just trying to not get evicted.
Yeah.
The grim, though.
So let me
I mean,
ask.
sucks.
So let me ask. I think we all believe deep down that this is an anomaly in American history. We've never seen anything like this happen, where you're in the country perfectly legally, but all of a sudden you don't have the same constitutional protections that Americans have. Do you think that this anomaly will go back to its happy place where it's been for 45 of the 47 other presidential administrations? Or do you think that this is a sea change, and that even if a Democrat is elected next time, he's going to begin expelling, or she is going to begin expelling people whose politics he or she don't like?
Well, don't forget, John, about the Japanese American internment camps.
Yeah, that's a great point I did forget about. Yes,
they were citizens.
They were citizens, American citizens.
Some of them green card holders, or whatever the equivalent was back then. And so, so they were legal, and that was never really fully repudiated, despite Reagan's kind of small apology and token checks that were issued to the survivors. The Korematsu decision, which he's got a school named after him, but it's still case law, and it's still used and cited by American administrations, including the Bush administration, to justify the Guantanamo. And so, I mean, it's like the problem is that we don't really. It's not like at the end of World War II when, say, the French government came in and said, everything that happened between 1940 and 1944 is invalid. We erase it. It's like it never happened. We don't do that. We kind of we keep a lot of this old, disgusting shit.
Yes.
And so it's not really settled. I mean, I think we'll return to sanity, probably, but not fully. That's the problem.
I mean, the other problem is that, leaving aside the sort of deportations of migrants who were deemed to be here illegally or had the wrong tattoos, these students who are getting picked up and these green cards holders who are getting picked up are being picked up because of criticisms of Israel. Mm-hmm. And that is a topic where our two major parties are in agreement that if the equation is, if the balance is Israel, the benefit of Israel versus any principle whatsoever, we come down on the side of, does it benefit Israel or does it hurt Israel? And that's the problem that we're stuck with. So my answer would be, I think that if Trump does leave office and a Democrat is elected, there will be a change in degree, but nobody's shown themselves really to be willing to stand on the side of principle when it comes to anything having to do with Israel. Except I will say for occasionally the people like the Thomas Masseys of the world, right? But I'm not going to build my political future on that guy, right? So that's the problem. If it was about almost anything else, I could imagine a party taking a stand, if people were being deported because, I don't know, whatever, for protesting Donald Trump or something, sure. But when it's Israel and when the only defense that the Chuck Schumers and the like have been able to come out with has to follow a sort of page-long diatribe about how disgusting, for example, Mahmoud Khalil's views are, I don't have a lot of faith that they are going to go to the mat for him. And if they're not going to go to the mat for somebody like that, who, as we've discussed, has done nothing offensive whatsoever, they're not going to go to the mat for somebody who actually has views that are repugnant to them, but who is here legally and has done nothing illegal. It's
a dark day. I think you're exactly right. I think your analysis is right on. And that means that we have nothing to look forward to in this area.
Well, that's.
I hate to say it like that, but it's.
I wish my head was
although at a certain point, Israel might become as popular as smoking. Used to be everybody did it. Now nobody does it, and you're a pariah if you do. Seriously, everything has Israel may have. It does seem like they've gone as far as they can go in terms of American public opinion. It may have cost Kamala Harris the presidency. That could happen, but it wouldn't really change the fundamental flaw here, which is that nobody's going to stand up for a minority opinion, or it's not even a minority opinion. It's an opinion that's just not accepted in the halls of Congress.
Yeah, because how much does I mean, again, it always comes down to how much does public opinion matter, right? Because I think the government has, I don't know, when I don't recall exactly where public polling was when it came to legalizing gay marriage or whatever, right? But that might have been a minority opinion where there was a decision
It was
that
not. What happened was, I remember this very vividly. It was, Joe Biden with his verbal diarrhea basically sort of accidentally brought about legalized gay marriage, right? So what happened was that the Obama had weaseled, and when he ran in 2008, said that he believed that marriage was between a man and a woman.
Yes.
And he believed in traditional marriage, but the public was getting ahead of him and the Democrats, and it became a majority opinion. It was upwards of 60% that the public was in favor of allowing it. And then at that point, Joe Biden, in an interview, went off the reservation as vice president and said, I don't have a problem with it. And at that point, Obama had to say that he was in favor of it, although privately he was kind of pissed. And then that led to the Supreme Court decision.
All right, there we go. So you got to force them every time.
Yeah, the leaders don't lead; they lead from behind.
Yeah, but again, I mean, we've seen these studies that show that when we spoke to Jonathan Cohen, I believe, who had done that study, finding that fully half the time Congress does not respond to the clear will of the majority, whether sort of on the whole or sort of locally in their districts. And so the sort of the fights that we are having is over about half of stuff that we disagree on, when actually most people agree on most things. It's just that our government won't act. And so I think this is one of these things, right?
Yeah.
Maybe the only thing that will happen is that Israel one of these days will literally be smoking, and that will maybe be the end of our troubles.
Here's the thing. The nut is going to happen when they have to figure out what to do about the people of Gaza. They can't expel them because no one will take them, and they don't want to go anywhere. So they're staying put. Mm-hmm. They live there, but the Israelis want that land. So now what? So at some point, so something's got to give. Either the Israelis have got to surrender and say, okay, all right, you guys get to rebuild, and we give up. Hard to imagine. Yeah. Or they're gonna force the issue in some violent, brutal, horrific way that destroys their international standing once and for all. I'm voting on B.
And which is clearly underway now, right? You know what I mean? Like, they are forcing the issue in a violent, horrific, illegal way. And yeah, it's up to the international community to decide when this is going to be unacceptable.
Yeah.
That's going to be soon.
I hope so. I hope so, Ted.
That's going. I mean, I don't want to see how it goes down, because people are going to die. It's going to be really ugly. Yeah. But it's going to happen. I mean, I think we're going to see it this year. Yeah.
Wow.
Do you want a quick Boeing update? It's not the most important news, but I do think it's interesting.
Sure.
Well, so there was a fun 1-2 for Boeing in the last week. I don't know if you saw this, but Boeing was awarded a $20 to $50 billion contract to build the Air Force's next fighter jet.
The F-47.
Yeah, it's going to replace the F-22.
You know why the number?
Oh yeah, they did it as a SOP to President R-47 president.
Isn't it disgusting?
Oh, I did not realize that. Well, so they won this award. They were up against Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin was not given this, despite the fact that Boeing, and this is the Wall Street Journal was reporting on this, Boeing has not successfully launched a commercial or military aircraft in 10 years. So they have been, Boeing, one of the most despised companies in the United States right now, I would say, has been handed this massive new contract. I couldn't see when this was first announced a couple of days ago, Lockheed had expressed some disappointment and hadn't said yet whether they were going to challenge the award. But in addition to the, doors blowing out of its commercial airliners and the commercial airliners, less comically crashing, twice, killing nearly 500 people. They have had quality problems, scheduling problems, and lost billions of dollars with their military planes, like a trainer. They've got a big Pegasus tanker and some other Air Force programs. In September of last year, they fired the head of their defense sector. And yet the government looked at Lockheed and Boeing and went, yeah, Boeing's probably a safe bet. And this story that I forget who it was. I think it's like a On the Wing or some sort of airline specific news organization spoke to the executive director of the Mitchell Institute for Air Force Studies, who said, it's up to Boeing to make this opportunity a win. Which again, it's like, is it supposed to be with our tax dollars that we say, let's see if you can do it this time? You know what I mean? Or are these awards supposed to go to like a sure thing, the company that we feel is definitely competent to make this product, which Boeing has not demonstrated itself to be in a decade? The other hand of this is that a judge has now scheduled Boeing to go on trial for defrauding the U.S. government in the case of those two crashes of 737 MAX jets. So they got this deferred prosecution agreement back in January 2021 that kept Boeing from having to actually face trial. And then Boeing was supposed to undergo all of these different regulatory changes and safety reforms and on all of this other stuff. The problem is that under that deferred prosecution agreement, Boeing admitted that its officers, directors, and employees had misled the FAA about these safety details that were, part of the reason these two crashes happened. There was one in Indonesia and one in Ethiopia, like 2016, 2017, or 2017, 2018, I forget. So hard to see how Boeing is going to defend itself in a criminal trial for something that it has already admitted guilt for.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and
it also feels like
no explanation for it.
And the thing that I think this relates to, sorry, Ted, I know you're getting in here, but like the contract certainly feels like the U.S. government looking at this struggling corporation thinking, we don't want you to tank. One, you're a big company and you're a big employer, and you're also sort of a flagship. It should just be a state-owned company, right? If they're going to be a sort of flagship American company. Yeah. And they're saying, well, we know this trial is going to go badly, so let's give you $20 to $50 billion to get you through this hard time.
They're too good. They're too big to fail.
Yes.
I mean,
that's exactly what's happened. Yeah.
Would that any of the rest of us were too big to fail? You know what I mean? Because it sort of seems like Tesla, Boeing, SpaceX, JP Morgan, Exxon, GM is too big to fail. But like 5 million homeless people, 10 million homeless people, 15 million people sleeping in their cars in the next decade or something. NBD, right? MBD will just build big fences and build El Salvador style prisons, or just send you all to El Salvador, I guess.
Yep. Yep.
Grim times, man.
It is.
It's bleak. Yeah.
Well, I thought Boeing might be a fun way to end this conversation, but it just leads us back to the same principle.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, it's, what it is? It's like the old ad for American Express, right? Membership has its privileges. And we're seeing that so much nowadays.
God. All right. Should we let you guys go?
Yeah.
All right. That's been your deprogramming. We'll be back. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.